I always set 2 cups on the kitchen table every Sunday morning. One for me, and one for my son, even though he hasn't been here in years. It started as a habit. Then it became a hope. And now, it's just something I do, without even thinking. The phone sits by the window, the same beige cordless one I've had since the early 2000s. I keep it charged, clean, and close. Every Sunday, I check the dial tone, just to make sure it's working. I tell myself, maybe he's busy this week. Or maybe next Sunday he'll remember. It's easier that way, to believe it's just bad timing, not distance. Sometimes, I even pick it up and hold it to my ear, just to hear the silence on the other end. There was a time when Sundays meant laughter. The smell of pancakes. The sound of his sneakers running across the floor. I used to complain about the noise, the mess, the toys scattered everywhere. Funny how quietness becomes the loudest thing when you grow old. The neighbors' kids visit their parents every weekend. I see them through the window, hugging, talking, bringing groceries. I smile when I see them, but sometimes, after they drive off, I have to sit down, because that kind of happiness makes your heart ache when it's missing from your life. I still remember his last words the day he moved away, "Mom, I'll call you every Sunday." And he did, for a while. But life has a way of getting in the way, doesn't it? Work. Marriage. Kids. The little things that steal time without meaning to. Still, every Sunday, I brew his favorite coffee. The one with too much sugar and not enough milk. I pour it in his old mug, the one that says #1 son, and place it across from mine. Then I wait. For the phone to ring. For his voice to fill this quiet house again. Because even after all these years, some part of me still believes he'll remember. The mornings here are quiet, too quiet sometimes. I live in a little house at the end of Maple Lane, surrounded by families that are always rushing somewhere. Mothers calling their kids in for breakfast, dogs barking, sprinklers ticking away. Life still moves here, even if mine has slowed down. I like to sit on the porch with my tea, wrapped in my old blue cardigan, watching the world start its day. It reminds me of when he was young, my boy, Nathan. He used to run down this same street every morning, backpack bouncing, toast still in his hand because he never finished breakfast on time. I'd shout after him, "Eat properly or you'll grow up lopsided." He'd just laugh and wave, his hair messy, eyes full of that wild curiosity that only children have. Back then, the house was alive, with noise, music, chaos. There were muddy shoes by the door, open cereal boxes on the counter, and drawings taped to the fridge that he insisted were masterpieces. Now, the shoes are gone. The fridge hums quietly, still covered in those same fading drawings. I never took them down. Couldn't. Because every time I look at them, I see him, 6 years old, covered in paint, smiling at me like I was the whole world. After his father passed, it was just the two of us. We didn't have much, but we had each other. Nathan was a good boy, responsible, kind, maybe too grown up for his age. He'd fix things around the house, help me carry groceries, even cook when I was too tired from the night shift. I used to tell him, "You're my little man," and he'd puff up his chest like he was proud of that. Then came college. His first big step away from home. I remember helping him pack, folding his clothes while pretending not to cry. He promised to call every Sunday, and for a while, he did. Those calls meant everything. We'd talk for hours about nothing and everything, about his classes, his new friends, how he still couldn't cook rice properly. He'd always end with, "Love you, Mom. Don't wait up too late, okay?" But as the years went by, the calls grew shorter. Then they became texts. Then silence. I don't blame him. That's what life does, it moves people forward. And sometimes, when you're standing still, it feels like the world forgets to look back. Still, I never stopped being a mother. Even when no one calls you that anymore. I keep his room tidy, his trophies still lined up on the shelf, the posters still hanging on the wall. Some people tell me I should move on, maybe sell the house, live somewhere smaller. But this house holds too many memories. Too many Sundays. Too much love that never really left. Every Sunday morning, I follow the same ritual: coffee, toast, 2 cups. I sit at the table, sunlight spilling across the empty chair, and wait. Not desperately. Not bitterly. Just quietly. Because deep down, in some small, foolish part of my heart, I believe that love, true love, a mother's love, always finds its way back home. Days pass slowly when you live alone. You begin to measure time differently, not by the hours, but by small sounds: the mail slot clinking, the hum of the refrigerator, the creak of the front step when the postman comes by. It's funny how quietness can grow heavy. At first, it's peaceful, then it becomes a presence. Like someone sitting across the room, saying nothing. Last Sunday was like any other. I made my tea, laid out 2 cups, one for me, one for him. And then I waited. The clock struck 11. That's when Nathan used to call. Always 11 sharp. But the phone didn't ring. Again. I told myself he must be busy, maybe at work, maybe out with his wife, or maybe just tired. He has a family now. 2 kids. I've seen their photos on social media, bright smiles, matching sweaters, everyone looking so happy. I tell myself that's enough. That knowing he's happy should fill the empty space. But sometimes, late at night, I catch myself whispering, do they even know I exist? The neighbors drop by once in a while. You should visit your son, dear. Don't wait for him to come. I smile politely and change the subject. Because she doesn't understand. I did visit, once. It was 2 years ago, on Nathan's birthday. I called first, of course. No answer. So I took the early bus, carrying his favorite cake, chocolate with caramel frosting. I remember standing at his door, heart pounding like a young girl on her first date. When his wife opened the door, she looked surprised. Not in a good way. Oh, you came, she said, her voice polite but tight. I could hear laughter from inside, people talking, glasses clinking, music playing. A small party. For him. My son. I asked softly, is Nathan home? She hesitated, then said, he's busy right now. Maybe you should have called. I held up the cake. I did, I said, smiling gently. Maybe he didn't hear. She took the cake, thanked me, and said, I'll tell him you came. That was it. No invitation inside. No hug. Just a door closing gently in my face. I walked back to the bus stop with the sound of laughter fading behind me. When I got home that night, I cut a small piece of leftover cake from my own fridge and whispered, Happy birthday, my boy. Piano softens, long pause. After that day, I stopped calling as often. I didn't want to be the mother who begged for attention. I told myself he'd reach out when he could, that he knew I was here, waiting, always. But lately, even the waiting feels different. He used to send small things, a card, flowers on my birthday, a short message that said, Love you, Mom. This year, there was nothing. Just silence. Sometimes I wonder if I did something wrong. Maybe I was too protective. Maybe I made him feel guilty for leaving. Or maybe I loved him too loudly, and he just wanted peace. There's a part of me that understands. Life gets busy, families grow, priorities shift. But there's another part, the quiet, trembling part, that still aches when the phone doesn't ring. Cut to, she looks at framed photo on shelf, Nathan as a child. With a missing tooth, holding a soccer ball. Every wrinkle on my hand tells a story of care, of late nights, of worry, of love that never asked for anything back. And yet, as I sit by the window, listening to the faint hum of traffic outside, I can't help but wonder, did he forget the woman who taught him how to walk? Piano rises slightly, emotional. The mailman came by this morning, left a small envelope. My heart jumped for a moment. Maybe it was a letter from him. But it wasn't. Just another utility bill. I smiled anyway, because hope is a habit I've never learned to break. Still, something inside me is stirring now. A small thought, quiet but persistent. Maybe it's time I stop waiting by the phone. Maybe I should find my own way to him. It was a Sunday. The kind that feels slower than others, where the clock ticks a little louder, and the walls seem to breathe with you. I woke up early, out of habit. Boiled water for tea. Set out the same old cup, blue rim, small chip on the handle. The cup Nathan gave me when he was 10. I sat by the phone again, though I told myself I wouldn't. Just for a moment, I whispered. Maybe today. But deep down, I already knew. It wouldn't ring. Still, I waited, half an hour, then another. The only sound was the birds outside and the faint creak of my rocking chair. And then, something strange happened. I started to laugh. Quietly, at first. Then a soft, shaky laugh that came from somewhere deep inside. Because I realized, I'd built my whole Sunday around a sound that never came. The ring of a phone had become my measure of love. And I thought, what if love isn't supposed to sound like that anymore? Pause. Piano softens. I looked around the room, the family photos, the dusty old bookshelf, the faded curtains. It was all still, but something in me had shifted. I stood up, walked to the dresser, and picked up Nathan's childhood photo, the one of him in his school uniform, smiling with that one missing front tooth. I traced my finger over his face. And whispered, "You don't have to call, sweetheart. I'll come to you." It wasn't bitterness. It wasn't anger. It was peace, quiet, trembling peace. For years, I had been waiting for him to remember me. But maybe it was me who needed to remember him differently, not as the man who forgot, but as the boy who once loved his mother fiercely. Sound of her opening a drawer, rustling papers. I took out a small envelope. Inside was a bus ticket, the same one I'd bought months ago but never used. I had kept it, just in case. That day, I decided I wouldn't let it expire this time. I packed a small bag, a sweater, a few gifts for the kids, and that same chipped blue cup. I didn't know if he'd welcome me, or even be home. But I knew I had to stop living between the seconds of a silent phone. Soft piano transitions to hopeful tone, sunlight brightens slightly. On my way to the bus stop, the world looked different. The trees shimmered in the late morning light. Children rode their bikes down the street. I could smell fresh bread from the bakery. Everything felt alive again, like the world had been waiting for me to wake up. I reached the city after an hour. The streets were busy, people rushing, horns blaring, laughter spilling out of cafes. I hadn't been here in so long. Standing in front of Nathan's house, I hesitated. It looked the same, neat, bright, full of life. Through the window, I could see movement. A little girl ran past, chasing a ball. Her laughter sounded like bells. I felt a lump in my throat. That was my granddaughter. I had only seen her in photos. Pause, wind sound, soft piano. My fingers trembled as I reached for the doorbell. But before I could press it, the door opened. It was Nathan. For a moment, we both froze. He looked older, tired, perhaps. But his eyes were still my boy's. "Mom," he said softly. I smiled, holding back tears. I was nearby, I whispered. "Thought I'd drop by." He blinked, as if trying to find words. "Why didn't you call?" I smiled again. "Because." This time, I didn't want to wait. Piano swells gently, emotion builds. He stepped forward, slowly. And then, without a word, he hugged me. A long, quiet hug, the kind that says everything words can't. I could feel his heart beating fast, his breath shaking. He whispered, "I'm sorry, Mom." And I, in that moment, knew forgiveness doesn't always need an apology. It just needs presence. Camera visual, sun rays through window, warm light on their faces. When he let go, I saw tears in his eyes. But there was a smile, too, the kind that reminded me of that missing tooth grin from years ago. "Come in," he said, his voice breaking a little. The kids would love to meet you. As I stepped into that house, full of life, laughter, and the smell of fresh pancakes, I realized something beautiful. I hadn't lost my son. I had only been waiting for him at the wrong door, the one called yesterday. I stepped inside slowly, as if afraid the moment might disappear if I moved too fast. The air was filled with the smell of butter and syrup. Someone had just made breakfast. It felt strange, like stepping into a memory I once knew, but that had changed while I was gone. There were toys on the floor. A pair of tiny shoes by the door. A drawing pinned to the fridge, colorful, messy, full of love. Nathan's wife, Emily, appeared from the kitchen. For a second, she looked startled, then smiled, a soft, hesitant smile that carried both guilt and relief. "Mrs. Carter," she said, wiping her hands on her apron. I smiled back, gently. "It's still my mom, if you want it to be." She froze, then nodded, eyes glistening. "Mom," she whispered. Nathan guided me to the couch. "Sit here, Mom. I'll get you some tea." The way he said "Mom" again, it felt like a small patch sewn on a torn heart. As he moved around the kitchen, I watched quietly, his steady hands, the way he hummed softly under his breath, the faint resemblance of his father in the way he carried himself. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like a visitor. I felt like a mother again. The little girl, my granddaughter, Lily, peeked out from behind the hallway door. Her big brown eyes studied me curiously. I smiled. "You must be Lily." She hesitated, then walked over, clutching a teddy bear. Nathan said softly, "This is Grandma." Her face lit up. "Grandma," she said, as if it was a new word she'd been waiting to use. She climbed into my lap, just like Nathan used to when he was her age. Her tiny hands traced the wrinkles on my face. "You have soft lines," she giggled. I laughed, a real laugh, one I hadn't heard from myself in a long time. "They're stories," I told her. "Each one means I loved someone very much." She smiled and leaned her head on my chest. And I thought, this was what love truly sounded like. Not a ringing phone. Not words from far away. It sounded like a heartbeat close to your own. Soft piano swells, gentle and hopeful. Nathan brought the tea, the same kind I used to make him when he studied late. He handed it to me, careful, as if holding something fragile. I looked up at him and said quietly, "You remembered." He nodded. "I never forgot, Mom. I just got lost for a while." I reached for his hand. "We all do," I said softly. "But the good thing about love is, it waits longer than we think it can." He squeezed my hand, just once, but it was enough. Emily came and sat beside us, offering me pancakes. We talked about small things, like Lily's school, Nathan's work, and the new park nearby. But between those words, there was something larger, forgiveness quietly stitching itself back into place. Scene, camera pans to window, warm sunlight, birds outside. As the afternoon passed, laughter filled the house again. Nathan showed me the garden he'd been working on. Emily packed a few leftovers for me, just in case you get hungry later. And Lily, she drew a picture of the three of us holding hands under a sun that took up half the page. Before I left, Nathan walked me to the bus stop. The street was quiet, the air soft and cool. We didn't say much. Sometimes, silence says more than words ever could. When the bus arrived, I turned to him and said, "Promise me one thing, Nathan." He nodded. "Anything. Don't wait for Sundays to remember you have a mother." He smiled, the kind of smile that carried both regret and relief. "I won't, Mom," he said. "And next Sunday, I'll call first." I laughed softly. "Or maybe, I'll call you." He chuckled. "We'll see who wins." Piano transitions to gentle, hopeful tone, golden hour light flickers. As the bus pulled away, I watched him grow smaller through the window, one hand raised, that same boyish grin on his face. And something inside me felt whole again. I realized love doesn't vanish when silence grows. It simply hides, waiting for courage to find it again. Cut to home interior, she places the photo back on the shelf, beside a new drawing from her granddaughter. I went back home that evening and set the phone on the table, but for the first time, I didn't watch it. Instead, I sat by the window, looking out at the sky painted in orange and pink, holding the little picture Lily gave me. And for the first time in years, I wasn't waiting anymore. I was remembering. And I was at peace. The house feels different now. Not because anything has changed, but because I have. The phone still sits on the same small table near the window. The same lace curtain sways with the evening breeze. The same clock ticks quietly on the wall. But somehow, the silence feels softer now. Not empty, just calm. As if the walls have stopped listening for the phone to ring and started listening for my heart instead. I still make tea at 4 every Sunday. Old habits have a way of staying. But now, I make it because I enjoy the sound of the kettle, the smell of the leaves, the way steam curls up and fades, not because I'm waiting for something to happen. Sometimes Nathan calls. Sometimes he doesn't. And both feel okay, now. Because love, real love, isn't measured in calls, or visits, or words said at the right time. It's measured in moments we carry quietly inside us. The sound of a laugh. The memory of holding someone's hand. The way a little girl called me a grandmom for the first time. The piano deepens slightly, warm and reflective. For a long time, I thought love had to look a certain way, daily calls, Sunday dinners, I love yous spoken out loud. But now I know love can also look like a simple smile at the bus stop. A teacup left waiting for someone who might come tomorrow. A small child's drawing taped beside an old family photo. Sometimes, love is quiet. And that's okay. When Nathan visited last week, he brought Lily again. She ran straight to my chair, her hair bouncing as she shouted, "Grandma." And I felt the same warmth rise in me that I used to feel when Nathan came home from school, that sense of belonging, of being seen. We sat together, all three of us, looking through old photo albums. Lily pointed at a picture of Nathan when he was small. "That's Daddy," she asked. I nodded, smiling. "Yes. That's your daddy, he used to climb trees and forget to do his homework." Nathan laughed. Some things never change. For a moment, everything felt exactly how it was meant to be, the years, the distance, the silence, they didn't matter anymore. What mattered was that we found our way back. The music grows softer, almost like a lullaby now. That night, after they left, I looked at my reflection in the window. The woman looking back wasn't just a mother who waited. She was someone who learned that waiting, by itself, is not a weakness. It's faith. It's love refusing to give up, even when the world grows quiet. And maybe, just maybe, that's what keeps us human. So now, when I think about Sundays, I don't think of unanswered calls. I think of the sound of Lily's laughter. Of Nathan's smile. Of the way the sunlight feels on my hands when I open the curtains in the morning. Life doesn't always give us the love we expect. But it often gives us the love we need. If we wait with open hearts instead of broken ones. So, I'll keep my phone by the window. Not because I'm waiting for it to ring, but because it reminds me that love always finds its way home, even if it takes a little longer than we hoped.